moment.
And so it's being recorded, so if you want to share it with colleagues afterwards, please feel free. You will get a link to the session. So first of all, well done. Well done on being shortlisted for these awards. They're very prestigious, very competitive. There are numerous regional awards for US, UK, Gulf, Saudi, lots of different country-specific ones. And many of the winners then resubmit into the international ones, as well as some of you who I'm sure are entering this award first. And so if you've been through one of the regional awards, the process is very similar. You might have attended one of these webinars before. I'm afraid it's going to be very similar. It will be tailored to this particular awards program. But this is particularly for those of you who haven't had to do a presentation, a second stage for one of the awards by Awards International. As mentioned, I'm not an employee of Awards International, I'm external. I founded this very niche marketing agency back in 2006, before anyone else spotted the niche. So we are officially the world's first award entry consultancy. It sounds like a bold claim, but it's true, and no one has disproven it in nearly 20 years. And this is some of my team, 16 of us, there's 25 of us in all. And what's unique globally is they are mostly on payroll. We train people intensely. We give them employee rights. We make sure that we are a responsible employer. And that's most of the team. Most of them there are on payroll. And because we're good at what we do, we win lots of awards. Over 2,300 awards won. So what I'm going to do is share with you a lot of the tips and tricks from nearly 20 years of doing this at Boost, and over 20 years doing it if you include previous jobs. And there's a couple of other links there to some of our sites, our UK, our international awards sites, and our UK and international awards list directories that people find quite useful. So, right, that's enough of who I am and what gives me a right to talk to you about the second stage presentation. Now, very few awards have second stages. I'm talking about less than 5% of all the awards in a database. You've got a database that you can browse online, over 5,000 awards. It's a minority, but it's a very good thing. So why is a second stage needed? Well, I've judged many of the awards with the UK awards, UK Customer Experience Awards in particular. And the second stage helps make the right decision. Ultimately, that's what it's about. It's making sure that whether you're the recipient or you're unfortunate and don't win, you can be confident that it's the right decision. And if you are a gold, a silver, or a bronze winner, you can be particularly proud of it. It's a very robust process. The scoring is documented. The judges are trained on how to use it. It's a very, very robust process, and that makes the awards more valuable. There is absolutely no interference. I can say as an outsider, no one at Awards International has ever come into the judging process and said, "Oi, give them the award because they just bought 3 tables at the dinner." It's none of that. It is a very, very fair, ethical process. So I'm going to show you how to put your best foot forwards and make sure that you have the highest chance of getting the recognition that you hopefully deserve. There's no guaranteed wins. That's why we don't call it how to do a winning presentation, because some of you on this session might be up against each other. So I can't guarantee you will win, but we tend to find the people who come to these webinars that I run are more likely. In fact, I once did an analysis and you're 3 times more likely to shortlist, 3 times more likely to win. That was what we found. So, right, why is a second stage needed? It makes the right decision. And we've often seen on the first stage, the highest scoring submission on the first stage isn't necessarily the highest scoring submission after the second stage. And the judges have had a chance to have a Q&A and really explore the story, make the right decision. The format. Now, you've got a 45-minute slot, so there's going to be a little bit of toing and throwing at the start while you set up, you introduce yourselves, the judges introduce themselves. Then typically the chair of judges will say, right, your 15 minutes starts now. And then you have 15 minutes to present. Some chairs of judges are a bit stricter than others. Some of them will just stop you dead and say, right, your 15 minutes is up, let's move to a Q&A. Some of them will give you a bit of leeway and might say, sort of wrap it up now. But assume they're going to be strict. Then you can't be perfect wrong. So 15 minutes of presentation, and then the rest of the session, whatever's left over, is the Q&A, and the judges tend to go round the table, and you can have up to 6 judges. So you could have up to 6, even 12 questions, depending on how engaged they are in your presentation. And we'll talk about the Q&A later. Most of today's session will be to do with the presentation, the bit where you're talking at them. And it is designed not to be an interactive exercise. You present to them and then they ask questions of you. So we're focusing mostly on that first 15 minutes, but I will cover some techniques for good Q&A management. Okay. How should it be different? Well, we're going to talk about it in the next slide a little bit as well in terms of qualities and purpose, but it's not about repeating a written entry. The judges who you will be presenting to will have scored your written entry as part, not as part of the shortlisting process, but after the shortlisting process. So after you've been shortlisted, the shortlisted finalists have their written entries given to the judges who will then score it, and those marks are banked. That's your first 50% of the marks. And then this section is for the second half, and we'll cover the scoring a bit more later. But the judges will then have the same judges who scored your written entry are judging you here. So there is no point in just repeating your written entry, and you won't get feedback on your written entry. So you can't say, oh, right, we lost marks there, so let's focus on that. You've got to start from scratch, but it is okay to repeat some bits, but it's better to build on others. Let me explain what I mean. Right, so the top couple of things, what makes it different, what makes it great, is the two qualities at the top. If you ask judges what they enjoy most in a really good presentation, the words that keep cropping up are passion and conviction. The judges might be sitting there looking at you on the Zoom screen, po-faced, no expression. That shouldn't be translated into your style of presenting. Give them an understanding of just how strongly you feel about your story, how passionate you are about giving customers a great experience. And that conviction, about energy, should translate. And spending time preparing and rehearsing will allow you to focus more on the energy and the delivery and less on getting the script right. And we'll talk about that later. Punchy. This is a chance, unlike a written entry, for you to add emphasis. You can't do it so easily in a written entry. You can, in those online forms, put in bold or underline or change the font if you want to add a bit of emphasis. But here you can really add punch, and it can be varied because you can have different people presenting, different media. You can have video, sound bites, different presenters. So it's a totally different experience for the judges and can be a lot more emotionally wow rather than just earning marks. So the role of it are these bottom two things. Your job is to add colour and add clarity. You've already laid out your story very factually because there's very specific questions and you've gone through them. But here is a chance for you to build on it rather than repeat it. So adding colour. So give them some examples, give them some stories, give them testimonials. Bring your very fact-based written entry to life. And adding clarity, it is okay to repeat some sections, particularly sections that you think the judges might struggle with. The results section, for example, will be implementation. The written entry doesn't have a lot of space for implementation. So here's a great opportunity for you to explain what the initiative looked like and felt like, because that isn't really asked for in the written entry. In fact, the planning and implementation section is lumped together in one box worth 100 of 700 marks in most of them. So you really don't have a chance to describe the story, the initiative in detail, the middle bit of your story. So here's a chance. Add a bit of clarity. So that's the opportunities that present themselves here. To just take your written entry and slap it on some slides is really not going to add much value. Okay. In fact, it might annoy the judges, to be honest. Let's have a quick eyes on the prize. If you're in a category with 3 finalists, then you're in with a good chance of getting gold. You might look at that and say, wow, not many finalists, I'm going to win. But there's actually, these awards have a great feature in that they have bronze and silver awards. So there's more chance of you to be an award winner. I'm not personally a fan of awards that go highly commended or some sort of best runner-up. You want to be an award winner. So if you've got 4 finalists, you might not be the gold winner, but actually you've got a chance of being a silver winner. So that's 50-50 of having a trophy. Or if there's 5 finalists, there's a bronze as well. So there's actually 3 in 5 chance of winning an award of some colour. So a 60% chance there. But then there can be up to 8 finalists. So you could find yourself with 7 competitors, but there'll be 3 trophies on the night. And one of the gold winners will become the overall winner. So the winner of winners. And that is the entry where the combined score of the written entry and the presentation is the highest across all the categories. So by definition, it will be one of the winners, the gold winners. And often it's just someone who is a cracking story, but also does the entry process well and is very careful about the scoring system, which is what we're going to talk about shortly. Timing is vital. You have got a fair chunk of time. So you're going to be presenting to the judges either on the 5th or the 6th of November. So you've got the ceremony on the 12th of November. Make sure that's in the diary and book your places. The sooner, with the Awards International, the sooner you book and register and stuff, the cheaper it becomes. So the sooner the better. The finalist presentation is what we're talking about today. That'll be on the 5th or 6th of November, which might make you think, wow, it's 7 weeks time. That's absolutely fantastic. I'll get on with my day job. There are things you can do now that will really help later on. And I've put a timeline. So if we start moving to the left, you'll see what I mean. Don't leave the rehearsals to the last minute. So we're moving from right to left here. I recommend having a dress rehearsal. And by that, I mean everything is ready and you are going through the actual presentation with the actual slides on a Zoom call to practice the format. You have agreed who's going to control the slides and who's presenting, and it's as if you were presenting. Do it a week in advance, and that gives you enough confidence to say, right, we've nailed it. Then you can practice with the thing that you're actually going to present. If you leave it to the last minute to nail your written entry, your script and your slides, then you're not going to have much rehearsal time and you might be rehearsing the old content. So I highly recommend get that date in the diary. We're going to talk about who should present, make sure it's in their diaries for a dress rehearsal about a week before the presentation. So, around the 30th, 31st. Then taking it back another week, you should have that run through of a rough script. Now, the script run through is where you've had a pretty good stab at it. You've got some vaguely correct PowerPoint slides to support you, and you're going to try it out. And always there's ideas and suggestions and cracking things that will make it even better. So you definitely need to allow time to take the feedback and suggestions, and maybe even bits of recording where someone said something that was so good you want to capture and put it in the script. Give yourself a week, if not longer, but try and put it in a diary, because you might have some very busy people. Put it in their diary. So it really makes a difference, this thing. It sounds like I'm being a project manager on you, but getting things in the diary can make the difference, because you make sure that no one turns up on the day unrehearsed, and the judges will instantly spot if someone's unrehearsed. And I knew a company where they invited someone to present who hadn't attended the rehearsals, and they got so excited they talked and talked and talked and talked and exhausted the 15 minutes, and they were only like 3 slides in, and this person, everyone was like, oh, shut up, because they weren't at the rehearsal. And the judges will spot it. And I've judged and I've thought, you're making this up as you go along, aren't you? These people, you often get them, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm great at presentations, I present all the time. That doesn't mean you can't rehearse. So get this in the diary. The first thing in the diary is a kickoff call. We don't do anything with a client without a kickoff call. I don't suggest you do either. So you get all the people who've got a say in this to join a call, and you're going to have an agenda about how we're going to use the 50 minutes, who's going to present, and so on. And we're going to talk about that later, some of the things you need to cover. Really, really important. Get stuff in the diaries, because you can take it out later, but just get it in as soon as possible. Right, we're going to talk about scoring. These awards are public about their scoring system, so you'd be a fool not to have a look at that. So I'm going to cover it. You might well have read it already. It's very similar to what I described in the first stage presentation, if you joined that one. So you've got either 6 or 3 criteria. So the written entries, there was 7 or 3. So there was a summary which earned 100 marks and also was very important in shortlisting. There is no summary here. You just get the other scores, which I'm going to put on the screen in a moment. So each is worth 100 marks, each of those sections. The scoring is the same in that way. And so you have to make sure you earn all those 100 marks and they're all as important as each other. There is no weighting. 50% of the total mark comes from this session. So even though there's 7 questions in one for most of the categories and 6 in the other, it's still 50% each. And there is for the individual and team, it's 3 and 3. So it's 50% each there as well. Now, what is unusual with these awards is judges don't confer. The vast majority of awards out there are written entry only, and the judges shortlist. It might be a different panel of judges, and then the judges sit there and they debate the winner. There might be a scoring system, but they'll still confer. Here, judges aren't meant to confer. There's occasionally a bit of dialogue, but it's not official. It's not a conferring process. The judges will apply the score to your entry and then press submit and move on to the next one. So it's not like if you're presenting last, you're the freshest in the mind. They score as they go along. So you have to make sure that your verbal presentation, stage 2, does you justice, because that's all you're going to get marked on. They don't say, oh yeah, he said something in the written entry, therefore we'll give him marks. They won't give you marks if you don't cover it in the second stage as well. Okay, hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions at any stage, put it in the Q&A or the chat, and Danilo is going to share them towards the end. So these are the criteria. These are very familiar to you because they were the same as the written entry. So the summary section doesn't exist, no marks for it, no requirement for it. And these are the sections, same as before, and the scoring is the same as before. If you are outstanding, which means it's compelling, robust, and fully evidenced, then you get 80 to 100 marks. Now, the difference with the written entry and the face-to-face presentation is the written entry, you are forced to answer the boxes in the sequence provided. Here, you don't have to. There is no compulsion for you to follow this structure. The judges at the end will consider whether your articulation of planning and implementation was compelling, robust, and fully evidenced. But it doesn't matter if it was at the beginning or at the end. They will score it in the round. And that's an important decision. So how you structure it is up to you. It does allow you to do more of a storytelling exercise. And that's another thing that can bring your story to life. You can have a lot more detail about the planning and implementation and really bring it to life as a story, as a journey that you went on. It's entirely up to you. It's much more free form. Okay. Right, let's go back to our initial discussions about the timeline. You need to get your team together on a kickoff call. And the first question you need to ask yourselves is, who's going to present? Now, you might not have an answer to that quite yet. It might be that it leaps off the page. Typically, you'll have someone who is very senior. It doesn't have to be the CEO, but it could be if you're a partnership entry, you're a third party, then you'll often have the client as well as the provider. And you'll have someone senior, you'll have someone who is, or if it's a partnership, 2 people who are really in the nitty gritty, who know the detail of the project. I call them the implementers. And then you're allowed as many other people as you like. I'd recommend a total of 3, 4 at a stretch. But those extra people can be whoever you want. I mean, it could be a customer, it could be a frontline agent. But when you discuss and plan your entry, it'll become clear that there might be another perspective that you can add. You can add it with a video and embed a video if you want, that's fine. There is a risk there, we'll talk about that in a moment. But have a thought about, is there another perspective which will help bring this to life, add extra color, extra clarity to your presentation? And it might be that bringing an extra person in will do that. Don't necessarily have 3 presenters who all have the same perspective. They're all implementers, people in the middle of the initiative that you're submitting. It might be that someone has a technology perspective, someone has the training perspective. but make sure that you have multiple perspectives. Okay. There's a few factors to bear in mind when you're planning it. So I'm a big fan of planning, have an awards plan for the year. Yep. When you're planning an entry, don't put pen to paper until you've really got your head around who's saying what and when. So this is what I'm recommending here. Some people prefer to start with a slides deck and work their way backwards. I'm not a fan of that. I like to just stop and have a plan. Let's map out our 15 minutes. So quick pop quizzes. How many words does the average person say in 15 minutes? Your written entry was 2,000 words. How many words could you actually say here? Well, the answer is about 1,800. The average person speaks at 125 words a minute. So bear that in mind when you're planning your script. And we'll talk about whether it's a script or not later. So what you take those 15 minutes and you decide who's going to talk, what are they going to talk about at a very high level and in what order. So you sort of slice up your 15 minutes and come up with what we call a storyboard. And only when you've actually made a really good storyboard and you know this person's going to talk about this subject for this long and this person's going to then step forwards and talk about this subject for this long, not too many changes because it will make the judge's head spin, but enough to make it engaging. Then you start getting into the detail about the content. What words are we going to say? And that's my preferred way of doing it. The approach of taking a random slide deck from around the business and saying this will do, let's talk over the top of this is not the way forwards here. You've got to make sure that you align your story with what you've said in the written entry and the scoring system. So the use of slides, you will have slides. It is Zoom. Like here, you're going to have your face there and the judges will be distracted by the slides and the slides will be bigger on the screen than your face. So you don't want to distract them too much. So what I've got here is a good technique, is that the slides are used to signpost you through it, but not share the content. So a classic case of don't use death by PowerPoint. Don't have your script appearing on the screen. Just use pointers. But the slides are more about the visual supporting assets. So here is a photograph of a retail environment, the contact center, whatever. Here is a graph. Here is a diagram. Here is a timeline that I'm going to talk you through. Here are the 5 work streams that we implemented here. Sort of visual assets like that are great. Now, some people use the slides to present testimonials. So video testimonials are fantastic. Beware, video doesn't always work on Zoom. Things can go wrong with bandwidth. Make sure you rehearse it carefully and know who's doing what. But video testimonials are great. Written testimonials, sometimes you want it on the screen, but if it's on the screen and you're a little head there and then it's on the screen like that, the judges will be tempted to read it. So I personally like to read it out and maybe have a little soundbite or a photo of who's saying it. But it's you got to make a decision. Are they going to read it off a screen or are they going to listen to me? And don't do both because it's not a great experience there. Videos are brilliant. If you want to embed videos, I've seen some, one of the first ones that I judged for the UK Customer Experience Awards was one of the best uses of video I've ever seen. It was me as a judge. It wasn't one that we developed. And it was fantastic. Loads of very short videos. Like here is a CEO being interviewed. Here is an agent being interviewed. Here is a video of our contact center. Yeah, it was really good. Lots of little snippets. It was very dangerous, but they got it right and they used it well. And it really added extra color to the presentation. So use it, but short, snappy, and each one has the purpose. What I don't recommend is having 5 minutes of your 15 minutes. Everyone just has to stand there and watch a video. That's slightly uncomfortable, and it's probably a video that someone created for another purpose. And it's not necessarily adding value, clarity, or color to what you've put in your written entry. So give it a good hard think before you start adding videos. But if you've got some good stuff that genuinely has value and is genuinely succinct, go for it. Now, this is a sensitive point about reading off a script, and there is no one size fits all here. All I'm going to say is the most important thing to take away from here is to ask this question. Shall we do a script? And ask the people who are presenting, what do you want? Some people will want a script. They haven't got time to rehearse. So they want a script. They're going to do it on a Zoom call. So they're going to have their webcam. They're going to cut a little hole in the middle of a script and literally read off the script, which is fine. And I've judged awards where people are very obviously reading from the script. It's not great face to face. These used to be face to face interviews, some of their sister awards, but now it's Zoom. You can get away with it. It's better if people are presenting from the heart and they're looking you in the eye and it's not like their eyes are moving left to right, but you're not going to get marked down. It's better to get the content right, and 15 minutes. It's up to you. Different people, different preferences. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. If you have got a script, what do you want to memorize? Well, it's good to go through it enough so that you do it in a slick way. Because if you haven't rehearsed enough, you'll find that what happens is the presenters will be so focused on reading that they'll forget to add the emphasis, the color, the passion, the conviction, because they're just reading. If they've done it enough, then they'll actually bring a lot of energy to the room because they're so familiar with the words that they can focus on the delivery of those words. But I'd still recommend, even if you are trying not to read off a script, to memorize a few things like the transitions, your final line and your opener and your closing remark. So, for example, some people do like to just have a few bullet points or they just use the slides like I am today. And if so, make sure your other presenters know their cue. So they'll hear the line that is the handover line and go, that's my cue. And then they can jump in and it's a lovely slick transition. What you don't want is someone just making it up as they go along and then they go, right, okay, and over to you, Bob, or over to you, Sally. And that just looks really rubbish. So make sure that each person knows their cue and can cut in without some awkward handover, which wastes time and makes the judges think that you haven't made an effort. Reading off a script, as I say, entirely up to you. My preference is to make sure that you have a script so that you can rehearse with a script and everyone knows their cues and their lines, but a lot of people just put the script to one slide on a day when they're practiced enough and speak from the heart. And just so long as they cover the right content in the right period of time, then fine. It doesn't have to follow the script. As I say, it's up to you. I'd like to talk a little bit about Q&A. This is 15 minutes after all. I've gone into a lot more detail about the verbal presentation and the written presentation in the previous webinar. But this is still important. Now, you've got maybe 4, 5, 6 judges that you're presenting to. That's not unusual. And each one will have at least one question. I've never known a judging panel where a judge said, no, I haven't got any questions. I can't remember that ever happening. And they feel a certain obligation to ask a question, and they'll probably be quite proud of their question. So it's never a bad thing to say, yeah, good question, which a lot of you will do anyway. But make sure you actually answer the question. Don't do the political thing of sidestepping it. And you can say, have I answered your question at the end? Yeah, classic interview technique stuff. But do answer succinctly. Okay, and I also recommend that one of you presenting decides who answers it. And that can be done in a non-verbal way. You can turn your head, but that's a bit weird when it's cameras. If you're in a room together presenting, which some people do, you can do it non-verbally, but if not, you say, right, I'm going to let Sally take this one. I'm going to let Bob take this one. And so one person makes that decision, because what you don't want to do is double up unnecessarily. If you double up, it's because you've chosen to, and it's the chair of judges has decided, I think this person's going to add extra value here. But don't think that one judge asks a question and all you need to go through and answer that same question sequentially, because you're just going to burn through your 15 minutes. And if you think about it, if you've got 6 judges, each with 2 questions in 15 minutes, you haven't got much more than a minute to answer each question. And the more questions you go through, the more opportunities you're giving yourself for extra marks. So you do want to get through those questions, do a thorough but fairly succinct answer, check that you've answered the question. Don't ask someone else to double up on it unless you really think they can add value. Move on to the next question. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I've talked about what to do. I'm just going to do a quick wrap up on things not to do, just to make sure you don't do any of the bad things. A lot of people start with really dull intros. They sort of say, oh, I work for this company and we're head office in this city and we've got this many employees, and by which time the judges are sort of snoozing. I do recommend that you find ways to make your entry start with a bang and at the end doesn't fizzle out, ends as strong as it begins. Okay. People often have the wrong team. They have a bunch of people all with the same perspective. I do recommend you have at least one very senior person in the room. The judges will value that and respect you for doing that, and that will earn goodwill, and it also adds an extra dimension. Death by PowerPoint, don't just, you know, we all know what death by PowerPoint is. You don't need me to say it, but it's surprising. It happens. People come in and it's just their script popping up bullet by bullet. Running out of time is catastrophic because you will lose marks. If you don't do the 6th section about impact, you won't get any marks for it. They won't say, oh, but they covered it in the written entry. So don't run out of time. Best recipe for not running out of time is do your planning and do your rehearsing. And that's the next point there, is you can spot it straight away as a judge, and I've done lots of judging. I can spot in an instant how much preparation they've done, how much rehearsing they've done. And if I think that they haven't given this process the time of day, then they've lost a lot of goodwill, and that will translate into a lower mark, like it or not. But transitions is a bit of a technical detail, but it does add to the perception I was talking about there of looking well prepared, looking well rehearsed, is if you have those slick handovers from one person to the next. It is good if you have multiple presenters, but they need to have good transitions between them. And as I said before, make sure that you end with a bold, confident statement so they know that it's the end of a presentation and it's time to move to questions, which is what I'm doing now. So Danilo, if there are any questions, please feel free to start sharing them now, and you can take ones you want and I'll take others.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. I've enjoyed listening to you. So, finalists, feel free to fire away if you have any questions.
Does look like there's a few up there. There's 6.
Lovely. Looking at them right now. Yes, we will be sharing the recording of this meeting with all the finalists, regardless of whether they've attended or not. So you can expect it during today. Zoom is the only platform for the presentation, so make sure you have it downloaded, test if it works. Can 2 winners have gold? If you have an initiative, you've entered twice in the same category, this could be the only option, but for most of our categories, there is a bronze, silver, and a gold winner. Valentina asked, could you please explain the scoring again, the part of 3 to 6 categories? I didn't understand well. Also,
Okay.
the no weighing part. Would you take that, Chris?
Yeah, sure. If you're entering the leader of the year or the team of the year, there are 3 questions. If you are entering any of the other categories, there are 6 questions. Each question, whether it's 3 or 6, has 100 marks. When I say there's no weighting, it's because the 100 marks for stakeholder engagement is 100 marks and exactly the same as the 100 marks for the results. So a lot of awards out there put a heavy emphasis on impact and innovation. Here, you've got an impact section and you've got an innovation section, but they're worth exactly the same as your business needs, your objectives, your stakeholder engagement, and your planning and implementation. So every single section is worth exactly the same number of marks. You don't have to cover them in that order. You don't have to have a heading which says this is the planning section. but the judges need to get to the end of your session and think, and they have to go through each of those 6 or 3 criteria and choose a mark based on the whole of your presentation. Whereas a written entry, they do it chunk by chunk. Here, they look at the whole presentation and decide in that 15-minute presentation and in the question and answer, how many marks out of 100 do I give them for these 6 criteria or these 3 criteria? I hope that answered your question a bit more clearly. So Valentina, if not, I'm going to give you my email address. If any of you have got any follow-up questions or want to say hi or anything, I'm going to put my email address on the screen. There you go. So I hope that answered your question, Valentina. And if not, drop us a note.
Thanks,
Back to you,
Chris.
Danilo.
So another one is the titles on the presentation slide should be explicitly named by the section, like strategy, goals, stakeholders, etc.
You can do whatever you like. The judges are smart people. They will get to the end and think, did this team present the business need clearly with a compelling, robust, and well-evidenced way? Yes, they did. Okay, 80 to 100 marks. Were the objectives clearly defined? Yes, they were. So the judges will get to the end of your presentation and the Q&A, and only after hearing the entire presentation, they get 5 minutes or something like that, not long, and they go through the scoring. They don't do it as they go along. So and they've got to include the question and answer in it as well. So they won't score it as they go along. So you can be as creative as you like. Some people do, some people don't, but it's not mandatory. Whereas with a written entry, it is. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Chris. How many people can we invite to the live presentation apart from the presenter, Valentina? So feel free to invite your whole team. That's completely up to you. We'd love to see all of them involved. So the intro is the part of the 15 minutes. Actually, the entire presentation should last 15 minutes. So
You can sometimes, and Danilo, you can clarify, but from what I remember from judging is sometimes people are welcome to the room. Judges introduce themselves, presenters introduce themselves, and then the 15 minutes start. So intro as in the intro of your presentation,
mhm.
absolutely, it's part of the 15 minutes, but your intro as in let me introduce myself, that tends to be additional time. So get that out of the way. Don't include it in your rehearsal, but do prepare it. So when you're introducing yourselves, make sure you all have a really quick introduction because it will eat into your question and answer time later.
That about answers it. So make sure to be there on time. Actually, make sure to
Yeah,
be there earlier.
yeah. Oh wow, being late.
Yeah. So
Don't do that.
what level of role is expected to deliver the presentation? Uh, I would say,
Well, yeah.
yeah. Feel free to take it, Chris.
Well, I sort of touched on it. I recommend having multiple levels. I think a dream team would have someone really senior, CEO, fantastic, VP, brilliant, someone who is as senior as you can get in the room, who can talk about the strategic business need and the strategic impact. But then someone to talk about the middle bit, about what did we do, planning the implementation, the objective setting, the quality assurance. So that'll be someone who's a manager typically. And then the third person can be whoever you want. Industry expert, customer, call center agent, doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you.
Thank you, Chris. Um, what do you think are the most common questions for the judges? Do you have any, Chris?
We do have a list of common questions. I can't remember. Whenever we do a rehearsal with a client, we've got the sort of frequently asked questions thing. You can probably guess them. It's things like, what would you do differently if you could do it again? But we tend to find more often than not, the judges drill into the results. But also, I can tell you, if you get someone on the judging panel who's into AI, for example, and you have AI in your story, they'll dive into it just because it's their comfort zone. So we find that um, when judges introduce themselves, you get a pretty good idea of the questions they're going to ask at the end based on their own personal interest and background. So yeah, it's really hard to practice the questions because the chances of you getting them right is small. But what you can do is practice your Q&A skills.
Great. Lovely. So what are those 6 questions, the sections? Yes, I would say that the six
Yeah.
questions actually refer to the sections in
Yep.
your entry. Is there a limit of audience? Uh, so no problem at all, Derek. Feel free to invite as many of your team members as you wish. For all those who raise their hands, if you can just use the Q&A chat box to write your question, that would be great. If we didn't get to it, just make sure to reach out to either myself or Chris after the meeting. What is more important, content of presentation or the story you present? It
Well,
is, yeah,
can I dive in on this one as well?
definitely.
I've often done workshops, and I used to do them with Awards International pre-pandemic, where people would come in person. And part of the fun when training people to write award entries is to get them to each do a little pitch about some story they're familiar with to each other, um, and then score each other, and then reflect on why they behaved the way they did as judges. And what's interesting is it's a mixture of content and packaging. You'd think that a good, robust awards program should be all about the content. You win on merit. But I can tell you, and this is our job, is that you can really increase your chances of getting the recognition you deserve. It's not about getting a recognition you don't deserve, but the judges will be more engaged in your story if you bring it to life, if you do things that make your story more compelling. And that's part of the scoring system, is it's got to be compelling as well as robust and well evidenced. So the robust and well evidenced is about being fact based and backing up your claims with data. But compelling is the story you present from the heart. And judges do want to hear it from the heart. So it's a bit of science and it's a bit of an art in that respect. If it was easy, then everyone would win. But I hope that by coming to this webinar, you just factor in the fact that you've got to put in the effort. And what a lot of people do when they do these presentations is they feel so proud afterwards. They often record it and share it with their colleagues if they do it well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Chris. Another one from Fadi. They've been shortlisted for 5 categories, and the question is, should they prepare 5 different presentations because some of the data will be the same things?
You will get different judges for each category. So don't worry about repeating yourself because there is no chance of you having the same judge twice. So it's fine to repeat it, but it has to feel right for the category. So one of it might be customers at the heart of everything, and the other one is best customer experience strategy. That can be exactly the same content. But if you're also going for team of the year with a different entry form and a different scoring criteria, then clearly you're going to need to change it. So it needs to feel appropriate each time. But if you've got the same presenters for all 5 category, I would strongly suggest you make the presentation as similar as possible for their benefit, but just tweak it. I mean, we're working with one company on these awards, and it's just subtle tweaks just to make it feel more aligned to the name of that category.
Wonderful. So will there be any questions that are very technical? Do I need to have someone IT technical with me? Yes. I mean, by all means, if the IT technician is available and free, make sure to invite him. It would be good, and you will feel more confident and prepared. Um, is there any bonus points if any team closes presentation before the 15 minutes time?
No, in fact, you've wasted an opportunity to earn more marks. If you've got spare time at the end, it's not a bad thing to have a little bit of a bonus section that you can slot in, which is a summary of your main points or something. But yeah, I would make full use of your 15 minutes.
Definitely. So since you talked about handovers, does every category need to have more than one speaker?
Doesn't have to. You can have one speaker. Um, my preference is to have more than one speaker. If it's even for an individual, You don't just want to have the individual talking there. Equally, if it's for a leader of the year, you don't want someone else talking about them. You want the two people there. Team of the year, it can be members of the team, and it can be the nominator, the person who's nominating the team. And every initiative has these multiple perspectives. It's just a chance for you to bring your story to life and make your entry, your presentation more engaging. There is no rule that says you have to have more than one presenter. You can have just one presenter if you want. It's much, much more flexible. The second stage has far less rules.
Thank you, Chris. So another one about the overall award. So the overall winner is actually the company that picked up most points across several different categories.
Oh,
So
it's the highest scoring entry for any one category.
exactly.
So if you were, I was at one presentation of the UK Customer Experience Awards, and our client won 1 gold, and another company there won 6 golds. They did incredibly well that evening. Well, actually, no, it wasn't six. I think it was 6 awards and 4 golds or something. So everyone assumed they were going to be the overall winner, but actually it was the one, our client that just won 1 gold, but absolutely smashed it in that category. They were the overall winner, which was proved that it's about the best single submission rather than collectively all your marks across all your submissions. I hope that clarifies things.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Chris. So from Roy, about joining with more than one presenter. So yes, actually, you are required to secure a booking package in order to bring multiple presenters. Um, is the presentation limited to only one presenter? That pretty much answers it. Yes, you are more than welcome to have multiple presenters. During the Q&A session with the judges, does one representative need to answer all the questions?
No. No, but I would have one representative who decides who answers the questions, and they might answer none of the questions. But what I'm trying to avoid here is that awkward moment when the judge asks the question and 3 people try and answer at once, and you're all diving in, and then one person finishes and someone else clambers in and starts adding to it, and then another person says, "Oh yeah, but what about this as well?" And it's just clumsy and it wastes time. So I recommend that one of you is in control, but that person might answer none of the questions. It tends to be the most senior person who decides in practice. It doesn't have to be, but tends to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So another one is, well, I've personally never encountered this, but can the presentation be prepared as a video only?
Uh, Again, I've never encountered this, but I've had someone request it because the person who's been nominated for an individual award is absolutely unable to present on finals day. So I would probably package it up and have someone there who will present most of it and then just introduce bits of video as appropriate. I've never seen it video only. I don't think the judges would thank you for it. And you've got to earn the goodwill of the judges. So I'd probably say no. It's not what this format is for. So I'd say only if there is absolutely no other way and you have a very good reason for it. But even so, someone should dial in, welcome them, and turn on the video and stop the video, talk for a bit, turn on the video, stop it. It's still not great.
Yeah, I agree with that. So only if you don't have any other way. Another one from Priscilla on the slide with 6 criteria, Chris mentioned other 2 points, professional background and engagement. Priscilla, that is only if you've entered CX Leader of the Year or CX Team of the Year category, which you haven't, so you don't need to worry about that. Can the presentation be shorter than 15 minutes? I think Chris explained it a couple of minutes before, so make sure to use the most of your time and to be able to tell as many things as possible. Could the 6 criteria score be mentioned one less time?
Just look at your written entry. It's the same as your written entry,
Yeah.
but minus for summary. So whether you did a team entry or an initiative entry, it's exactly the same sections. and exactly the same phrasing as well. So where it says stakeholder, it says what's your stakeholder engagement model, who was engaged, how were they engaged, and the lot. It's exactly the same text and the same box for each of them. So yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Again, the same question about some examples of question from the judges. Not to repeat yourself, Chris, I think you've explained it correctly. I've personally heard a lot of questions like, what are some of the main challenges you've encountered?
Yeah, good.
Did you have some obstacles? What's next we can expect from your team?
Yeah. What next? Good one. Yeah.
Stuff like that. So, is it a must to show up some financial benefits of the project? What if a project was aimed at improving clinical outcomes of our patients? In other words, it is very complicated to calculate financial benefits at some stage.
Okay, that's a really good question. It's all about mission accomplished. So with there should be a thread running through the business need, the objectives, and the results. So those three sections, all worth 100 marks each, so half of the total marks, all should have commonality. So it could be that the problem was to do with clinical outcomes. Therefore, we set objectives to do with clinical outcomes, and these were the results to do with clinical outcomes. So if you have those threads running through it, that's fine. Mission accomplished. It doesn't need to have a financial benefit. I've seen plenty which just talk about what does this mean to customers, and what does this mean in terms of customer satisfaction and customer retention. There is often a financial dimension. So if you have happy customers, you tend to be more commercially successful. But if you're not a commercial organization, your purpose is to deliver better outcomes, then that's fine. You're not going to be marked down. It's not mandatory. And if it's not pertinent to your story, fine.
Absolutely. Quite agreed. Thank you, Chris. Is it necessary to include organization's information in the presentation?
It's not a great use of time. You do need to explain the business need. And in explaining the business need, you need to explain the context. So this is the industry, this is our purpose, this is our goals as a business, which link to the goals of the initiative. So you need to set the scene, but you don't have to do a sort of Wikipedia description of your company and its industry sector or where its head office is based, unless it's part of your initiative. So yeah, just keep it down to what's relevant. Otherwise, you're just going to burn through time giving stuff that's not going to earn you any marks. But the judges they just need to understand the context.
Thank you, Chris. So Priscilla asked, do we know who the judges will be beforehand? Well, on the 26th of September, they will start scoring your written entries. So on demand, we'll be able to let you know who they are.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that. I've learned something new there. I'm going to
Well,
make sure we ask.
we don't practice it, but if it's completely um, crucial for you to know, we could perhaps be able to let you know. But you can see the entire list of the judges on the website. Just visit the Meet the Judges webpage.
Yeah.
Some of them will be on your panel. Another one is what if the person presenting hasn't worked on the project directly, but is aware of most of its details, but then gets asked a question like, what would you have done differently when the presenter hasn't already done much with the project?
I've never seen anyone do that. I'd say it's very dangerous. If you've got someone like your PR team presenting on behalf, I'd say that's not a good idea because half the time is spent on the Q&A. And if a person just presents, so if it's the person, as in there's only one person, then that's dangerous. You're going to lose marks. If it's one of the people hasn't worked on the project, maybe because they're a good public speaker, that's fine. Um, just so long as they've got other people, like one of the earlier questions about having tech support, technical people there. Just so long as you can answer the questions, even if you're maybe a non-English team and you have one English presenter and then three people who are non-English, just so long as you can communicate and answer the questions, that's fine. But no, I wouldn't have one person in the room and that person hasn't worked on the project. That's super dangerous. I would not recommend it. It's better than nothing, but it's not much better than nothing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris. And I've just actually heard from my team, so please forget about the information I've just told you a couple of minutes ago. We
I
will,
was so excited
yeah,
by that one. Oh
yeah,
well,
we will know who the judges are on the 26th, but you won't know before the actual finals day. And the reason for that is obvious. So forgive the misunderstanding. Um,
that's all right.
moving on to the next one, can it work well for multiple presenters if they're in different locations and countries? Well,
Yeah,
I
it's fine. I've seen it happen.
yeah,
International is fine. I'm conscious that a lot of you are going to have a hard stop. I've got a hard stop on the hour, so we're nearly at the bottom of the questions. But thank you very much for everyone hanging on in there.
yeah. Thank you so much. Just a couple more questions remaining.
Yep.
I would like to confirm whether the allocated time for the presentation, including the Q&A session, is 15 minutes or 30 minutes.
15 minutes presentation, 15 minutes Q&A,
Exactly.
and they allow for a little bit of time to set up and to introduce yourselves at the beginning. So I think it's a 40-minute slot, 5 minutes for the judges to score it at the end. So the presentations are stacked up 45 minutes apart, I believe, but it's 15 minutes and 15 minutes. That's what you care about.
Wonderful. So do the presentations need to be shared prior or after?
Nope,
That is about it. I hope not to focus for our English language. You know, we may pronounce wrong words.
it's
Uh,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah, you
completely fine.
absolutely will not be marked down for your presentation skills or your language skills. It's definitely, you will not be marked down for it. The judges are too professional for that. They're all really professional people.
Absolutely. Is there a dress code for the presenter?
I'd say business smart. I sort of business, a collar and a jacket,
Yeah,
or your own, whatever's culturally relevant for you. If you turn up in a t-shirt and jeans, it just like a job interview. Just it's just not. But you're not expected to wear a tie. It's not that formal. But the
thank you.
ceremony actually, oh, it's a virtual ceremony, isn't it? So,
I know ceremonies in London in
oh, it's
person.
in person. Yeah,
Yep.
that'll be black tie.
Black tie, yes. So, is there a presentation in the final day or just receiving the awards? So, the presentations are on the finals day in front of a judging panel, and receiving the awards is in London on the
On the
12th of
12th.
November.
Yeah. 5th and 6th, 12th.
Exactly. How do I know when will I be presenting? The exact time slots for the presentation schedule will be on the awards manager on the 4th of October, and we will notify all of our finalists. During the Q&A, can you return to the PowerPoint slide to support the answer? Yes, but I hope we've already managed to answer your question. Does the utilization of a distinctive presentation format result in a higher scores compared to a traditional presentation approach? Well, I would say no. Um, but yeah, I would need to know a little bit more about what you mean by utilization of a distinctive presentation format. So
Yeah,
feel free to,
you can use Prezi and there are other
yeah,
tools. I'm not sure.
yeah. But feel free to elaborate more on that via email, either to myself or to Chris. And that will be the last question for today. As a Saudi participant, can we show up with traditional dress?
Yep,
Yes, by all means, feel free to.
absolutely.
Lovely. And I think that does it. Thank you very much for your time, Chris, and to all of our
No problem. Thanks,
finalists.
Danilo. Great load of questions. They're really good questions. Thank you
Yeah,
for engaging so much in the presentation. And lovely to
absolutely.
speak to you all. And final word, good luck. Blow their socks off.
Thank you so much, Chris. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.